Chapter 13, March 1915. More than 2 months had passed since we had celebrated Christmas and its following holidays. A week before I had seen a large sign at the end of the lake which read, "Ice unsafe." The snowman in our backyard had lost his majestic appearance. The blue enamel pot, which he wore so proudly as a helmet, slid slowly forward and to one side. All around him lay small pieces of coal, for he had lost both of his sparkling black eyes and all the buttons from his uniform. The streets were squashy and slippery. Our glorious snow trenches were melted into soft piles of mud. One of those premature spring breezes had robbed us of all our winter fun. Feeny, Clara, and I did not have the slightest suggestion of a cold, yet Mama was afraid of such sudden changes in the weather and made us sniff white, fine ground tobacco and take cough medicine before leaving for school. It was no longer unusual for us to see soldiers leave for the battlefront. Still, we followed every departing troop to the train. Crying, hooray, and singing, Deutschland über alles, we waved goodbye to the men. Sometimes we watched Red Cross cars arrive. Slowly, they almost sneaked into the station. Army doctors gave short, muffled orders. Soldiers with Red Cross bands around their arms boarded the trains. As they reappeared, they carried stretchers on which wounded groaned or grinned. Some of these men looked helpless and frightened. Some of them were even bold. Some stared up to the skies while others lay with closed eyes. There stood always a quiet crowd to welcome these suffering heroes. Nobody ever sang or shouted, for doctors, officers, nurses and gendarmes hushed the people to silence. We children had been taught in school that we should prove our gratefulness to the wounded by living as patriotic Germans instead of greeting them with enthusiastic exclamations. Very often, however, came a transport of less serious wounded soldiers. They were not satisfied with only a smile for a greeting. As they staggered from the trains on crutches or with heavily bandaged arms and heads, they would yell hysterically. The children threw flowers to them, the girls kissed them and the grown-ups cheered. The convent of the Holy Brothers and part of the castle had been transformed into a military hospital. The young women of Neuburg offered their services as war nurses. My German sister Maria had also enlisted. Her first experience must have been dreadful for poor Maria, returned from the hospital pale as a ghost and too nauseated to eat. One day, however, they brought her home in an ambulance, for she had fainted while on duty. Mama, fear-stricken, together with Fanny, carried her to bed. Feeny, Clara and I crouched in a corner and looked wide-eyed at our sister. She was burning with fever and she cried and moaned. She tore her hair frantically. With rigid hands she fought the empty air around her. Mama tried to calm her with gentle words and pressing ice packs on her head, but Maria tossed restlessly and refused to be quieted. "Stop it. Somebody must stop it," she shrieked. "Mama," she cried, breathing heavily, "stop this horrible war." She buried her face into the pillow and shuddered. "It's ghastly, these young, old suffering eyes." "Oh God," she cried out, in a new burst of agony, "Oh God, how can you permit such horror?" Feeny, Clara and I were frightened to tears. Mama, pale and nervous, motioned us to leave the room. I heard Maria cry for a long time, and it was only after Dr. Haber had left our house that Maria's room was quiet again.